This morning, COVID is forcing budget cuts across the state. So how then is Dallas County able to leave its spending the same and still hand out millions of dollars in pay raises? One of our questions for Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. The top Republican Party official in Texas says the Republican governor is doing it wrong, completely mishandled the COVID response. Hear what else Alan West told us. New voter registrations are down in Texas this year compared to 2016. So which political party might be helped or hurt by that? And a new push to legalize marijuana in Dallas. Can the city even do that? We'll ask Councilman Adam Basildua.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning to you there. We begin our program with a reminder. 15 days left to register to vote. That deadline is October the 5th. Let's now get you caught up on the biggest political stories all across our state in the last few days. We will see John Cornyn and MJ Hagar debate each other face to face this fall. You know, Hagar is the Democratic Senate nominee, Cornyn the Republican incumbent. She challenged him to 3 debates. Cornyn has already agreed to 1 and said he would consider more. The election is 44 days away. Remember all that controversy around Chick-fil-A opening a store in the San Antonio airport? Well, a year later now, and a significant update this morning. Some city leaders said Chick-fil-A contributes to anti-LGBT causes, didn't want them in the city, and told the chicken chain that it needed to find another place to go. Well, San Antonio finally relented, and now Chick-fil-A says it's not going to open a restaurant there in the airport after all. A quick note this morning about Congressman Ron Wright. He is a Republican who represents several counties in North Texas, including Fort Worth. Congressman Wright's cancer has returned. He was admitted to Baylor Medical Center in Dallas last week. Wright's campaign said he has been in a tough battle with cancer this year and added that the congressman and his family appreciates any prayers and well wishes. COVID is forcing counties and cities all across our state to cut costs. But listen to this. Dallas County got some creative here. Commissioners lowered the tax rate and decided not to increase any budget spending, but they still set aside millions of dollars for pay raises during this pandemic-induced recession. With us this morning is Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins. Judge, it's good to see you.
Hey, great to see you.
So was anything cut from the budget, Judge, in order to afford this 2% raise for county employees and Parkland employees?
Well, there may be small things cut here and there that we no longer need as we continue to modernize, but largely it's the same services for the public. It's the exact same services you had last year. Plus, we put quite a bit of money into mental health care, into improving the ways we police. We pulled together a group of city managers, including the city of Dallas and the city of Irving. And that was led by Daryl Martin, our county administrator. And they did a great job coming up with ways to do it better, the way that we police, so that now mental health calls will be more handled by non-police mental health professionals. And we put money into deflection centers, which are places for people with mental health care needs to go.
Well, I want to ask you about that. It's a deflection center, and the county set aside $1 million for this. So what would it do, and who exactly would go there?
So right now you've got people being arrested for making a scene outside of a 7-Eleven, for instance, who have serious mental health needs. They don't need to go to jail. They need help. And these are also the people that it can turn ugly and you can have a really bad outcome in policing. And so by putting them in, having them seen by mental health professionals at the scene rather than a police officer and taken to a place where they can get help, you're going to have a lot better outcomes. And I want to thank Freddie Haynes and Omar Suleiman for helping me put together that committee, all the city managers and community members that served, and especially County Administrator Daryl Martin, who facilitated that work.
Yeah, Omar and Freddie, of course, two of the big faith leaders here in Dallas. Fort Worth as well too. Some people though were critical, saying, you know, $1.2 million to create this jail alternative might not be enough money. Do you foresee the county or putting more money into it in the future, or getting more grants to pay for some of this?
Well, we're going to the private sector. We're asking for help there. I hope to have some good announcements on that soon. We already had some money set aside. I believe we will have all the money put together to finish that project this year.
I want to ask you about COVID numbers. We have looked at the daily updates from Dallas County, and the COVID numbers are pretty low considering where they've been in the past month or so. Is the worst behind us, or do you expect another surge this fall as the temperatures change?
You know, that's entirely up to our community. The temperature change should help us, because the more people can get outside, can eat on the patio, the better. In the winter, it gets worse on the East Coast, but it gets better here, is the theory that the scientists are working on. But really, Jason, it's up to all of us. If we wear our mask and maintain 6-foot distance, avoid those unnecessary outings to indoor facilities, and we don't go anywhere where people can't wear a mask 100% of the time indoors, then we'll continue to see this good trend, more kids back in school, more businesses thriving. You know, we've added jobs the last 2 months because we're getting our numbers down.
Are you confident that the worst might be behind us?
I'm confident that if you all continue to wear your mask and make the good decisions you've been making, that the worst can be behind us. But it doesn't take very many people making bad decisions. For instance, if the bars open back up, or if the mask mandate becomes a suggestion, then we're going to be in very bad shape very quickly.
Gotcha. Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins, good to see you again. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Texas, like much of the country, is preparing for what could be record turnout in the November election. But here's a statistic that makes you wonder what we'll really see. New voter registrations are down in Texas this year when you compare it to the last presidential election back in 2016. There's a reason for that. Ross Ramsey is the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. He is in Austin for us. Ross, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Doing well here, you know. So which political parties are helped or hurt by these new voter registrations being down?
You know, it's hard to say. I think the thing in your intro that really points to this is the uncertainty about this. Who's not signing up? It's a question of where the new voters might vote if they showed up, and where the new voters are in the state. Right now, the Democrats are depending on young people to sign up with some enthusiasm. So I would imagine that they're the first ones concerned about it.
Let's talk about Texas seeming to ever change. It's the way it calculates COVID cases. That's one of the governor's key indicators on how to respond to COVID-19 spread. This has happened before when they've changed their methodology here. Why did this latest change happen, and you know, what's going on with it?
They were computing the positivity rate, which is the ratio of positive tests to all tests. And they were counting positive tests on the day they were reported to the state and not the day that the tests were given. So you get a report that doesn't necessarily reflect where the disease is spreading at a particular time. They've changed that now. They're trying to go back in time to see what's happened, but it means they've been making decisions based on flawed information.
That's incredible. Ross, thanks. Back to you in just a moment. Coming up, a new push to legalize marijuana in Dallas. A councilman wants to end arrests and even tickets for some people caught with it. Can Dallas, though, even do that? And the top Republican Party official in Texas says the Republican governor is doing it wrong, mishandling the COVID response. Alan West takes our questions when Inside Texas Politics returns. 3 years ago, Dallas County decided to simply cite and release anyone caught with 4 ounces or less of marijuana. But police over those 3 years have still been taking people to jail for it. A Dallas councilman says it's time to make this a local law to stop arresting people and also forget about ticketing them too. That councilman is Adam Basildua. He represents District 7, which is South Dallas. It's Buckner Terrace and far east parts of the city. Good to see you, Councilman.
Good to see you, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about what this ordinance would do. What's the impetus behind it, and what would it do?
So it's actually a piggyback off of legislation that was passed last session that requires testing after the legalization of hemp in the state of Texas. And with the THC of a certain level that is prevalent or that is present in hemp,
Right.
and no distinction between marijuana and hemp. There has to be testing, and without that testing, there's no prosecution. So all of our charges are being thrown out at the county level, and it's essentially been a waste of our resources to pursue any of those charges.
Councilman, does any other city do this right now, what you want to do?
Yes, sir. I actually worked with Councilmember Greg Cassar down in Austin. He originally put this forward, and they passed it. I just spoke with them last week to check up and get an update, and they have had no legal challenges in the city, and it has worked out very well for them.
Well, I was going to ask you about that later on in the conversation here, whether you expect, if this passes, the state might challenge it.
You know, I don't think that this is going to be challenged, because this isn't an attempt to legalize or undermine the state's authority. This is taking data and looking at an inefficient use of our resources, and something that we can do here at the local level to not only better utilize our law enforcement resources, but also make a very needed change that has been unjust in our justice system towards predominantly brown and black communities. It shows that over the past 5 years, over 90% of the possession charges have been either Latino or black residents of the city of Dallas.
So how about political will on council? Is there political will to actually get this passed? And if so, when might it happen?
I believe that there is political will to pass this. I believe that there is an opportunity for us to really look at this as a way to, like I said, use our resources better. Again, this is not a way to try to do what the state legislative body is charged to do. But we have a point in time when 33 states in our country have this substance legal,
right,
of some sort. And we're still locking people up and spending tax dollars towards that effort. And meanwhile, we're not prosecuting them. So we could use these officers to improve our response time and have more bodies on patrol for the uptick in violent crime that we have seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, good deal. We appreciate it, Councilman Adam Basil-Dewar from Dallas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks. Governor Abbott announced loosening up COVID restrictions across most of the state a few days ago. But the new chairman of the Republican Party of Texas told us the governor has mismanaged the whole response and says he didn't follow the state constitution. Alan West is the guest for this week's Y'all-itics Political Podcast, and here is some of what he told me and co-host Jason Wheeler.
What are your thoughts about how Governor Abbott has handled the pandemic here? And is there a split in the Republican Party here in Texas as to loyalties with regard to that?
Well, let me explain something. On 31 July 1982, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. I did not take an oath to a person. I didn't take an oath to a political party. And so I will always lean toward the side of the rule of law and what our Constitution, to include the Texas Constitution, says. And our Texas Constitution talks about emergency powers and how the executive branch, after 30 days, has to come back to the legislature to be given, the permission to continue on. We're not a constitutional monarchy. We are not to be ruled. We're supposed to be governed. And so I am very concerned when we continue to see a litany of executive orders, mandates, decrees, and edicts that are handed down and they're not brought through the legislative process. I'm concerned about the fact that $275 million has been given to a private sector company, MTX, for contact tracing. The only people that are supposed to appropriate taxpayer funds is the Texas state legislature.
But do you think Governor Abbott has been too heavy-handed here then?
Well, without a doubt, I think that you see that. When you talk about 90% of the live music establishments in Austin, Texas are gone forever.
Alan, should the governor have called a special session and let the legislature decide
Absolutely.
some of these things?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that's in the Constitution of the state of Texas. There should have been a special session that was brought in. That's why the people have elected representatives, their state house and their state senate members. And they should not want to see their power within the legislative branch usurped by an executive branch.
I'm curious about the comments that President Trump has reportedly made in the past. The Atlantic reported that he called servicemen and women who died suckers and losers. The Trump administration apparently removed the POW MIA flag from atop the White House. We all remember things he said about the late Senator John McCain. What are your thoughts on this as someone who you described as being an old soldier? What do you think about this?
Well, first and foremost, I will tell you that Atlantic story has pretty much so been debunked. Even John Bolton, who is not a friend or a fan of President Trump, came out and said he never heard any of those comments. John Kelly, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, no one has supported those comments.
Well, in fairness, there were several other news organizations that said that they were able to verify parts of that, including Fox News.
Well, I know, but if the people that were right there with him, I don't think that General John Kelly, who was a retired Marine 4-star general who also had a son that was killed in service to this nation, would allow a commander-in-chief to say something of that nature and not correct him on the spot and not come out and say anything about it later on. So that's where I put my faith, trust, and confidence in.
I know you were involved in that pretty bad motorcycle wreck not too long ago. How are you feeling? You look great now. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, I am a walking miracle. It is by God's grace that I'm here, because people don't survive a motorcycle accident on an interstate highway at 75 miles per hour. So the fact that I've completely recovered, I mean, I'm back running up to 5 miles, doing push-ups and swimming. I've got probably a month and a half, 2 more months of therapy on my shoulder, but 3-month checkup, the socket bones and everything in my shoulder have completely healed. No scar tissue, the cartilage is fine. So I just give praise and honor to God.
Are you still riding?
No, I'm not going to ride anymore. I rode for 35 years, but I tell you, I can't put my wife, my daughters, and so many of my friends through that again.
And Alan West there had a lot to say. To listen to the entire episode, grab your cell phone there, aim the camera at this QR code on the right side of your screen. It's going to open up another window on your phone. It will take you directly to these episodes. And while you're at it, don't forget we drop new episodes every Tuesday. Our conversation will continue in a moment about Governor Abbott loosening those COVID restrictions in parts of the state. He said he's still not ready, though, to open bars. But how much did politics play into his announcement? One of our questions coming up next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross is back with us. So is Bud Kennedy, the columnist, at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And, of course, Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas, here every week as well. Ross, will start with you. And a few days ago, Governor Abbott loosening up restrictions across most of the state, letting businesses open a little more, most businesses at least. He's going to say that this was science driving him. But how much was actually political pressure?
Well, it's a mix of the two things. You know, he would like politically to open everything up, let everybody go free and back to normal. The science is holding him back. As much as he can open up, the more he can open up. The politics are good, and he'll keep doing that as long as the science lets him.
As long as the science lets him, Bud.
If it were pressure within his party, he would have been opening up already. I mean, look at Georgia, look at some of the other states. The governor's been more careful. You know, most of the pressure is rural. I think in the urban areas, they want things to be a little tighter, be a little more careful. Bars aren't open. Bars had their chance. They fouled up. They have to go to the back of the line now. They get to open if they have food or food trucks.
Bernadine, what's your take on this, considering our interview earlier in this program with Chairman West, the Republican Party of Texas chairman, saying that the governor really should have included the legislature a lot more in decision making?
Well, they've been saying that for months, and he hasn't called a special session. And keep in mind, he's opening up businesses and letting more people come in, but just keep in mind also, if he were to have to close down something again, that's worse politically than opening up or not opening up everything. And I think that he's doing okay politically.
Yeah, that's
because he's listening to the science as well as he's opening up, allowing more people into business.
But that's a good point and kind of leads into our next conversation here, Ross. Obviously, football in full swing, and before too long, we're going to have cooler temperatures as well. But the numbers for COVID across the state, especially in North Texas here, are a lot lower than they have been for July and August. So is the coronavirus losing its punch at all as an issue in November?
It depends on what you call high. You know, we're just now back down to the mid-June numbers that alarmed us so much that the governor put restrictions back in place. So as he opens this stuff, as we go to football games, college, public school, we've got a week or two here where the gestation period of the coronavirus will decide what we're looking at in a couple of weeks and what do we have to do from there.
Bud?
Jason, I don't know if it's a campaign issue anymore. I can tell you at the newspaper, people quit reading coronavirus and COVID stories about the third week of August. Things started getting better and people started tuning out. I don't think people are as worried about it anymore. Yeah, they've had to cancel some football games. People think it's the young kids. You know, they're not in the hospital. There's not a serious problem. I don't know if the Democrats can campaign on this.
Bernadine?
I don't think that campaigning on COVID is the issue anyway. What's going to happen is the parties and the candidates getting their supporters to the polls, which is going to be more of a challenge than how we feel or how they think about COVID-19, which I think is still important now. But it's going to be a challenge getting people to the polls, getting voters to the polls, encouraging them to vote early, encouraging them to do mail-in. And now Abbott has extended the early voting time. So that's what's going to be as important, is getting those supporters to the polls.
Bud, you wanted to chime in briefly?
But Jason, I talked to Democrats this morning who are going out door to door knocking in Arlington. First time I've ever heard of Democrats going out. They know they have to get out and meet people and get the turnout up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good deal, guys. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching as well. Inside Texas Politics back again next Sunday with Bud, Ross, and Bernadine. Hope you can join us then as well. Take care.